And so he's going to talk to us a little bit about South Africa.
All right. Well, hi, everybody, and good afternoon, and hope things going well. How's my audio? Am I coming through okay? I got a nod there. Great. Well, I appreciate the time, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about South Africa, which is the country that I grew up in. I've got a short presentation that I'm just going to show some pictures, and we talk about South Africa, and then hope we can have a little bit of a discussion. So I'm going to share my screen here in just a second. And I am going to start the slideshow. So hopefully you're seeing the presentation now. Get in a nod, thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah, so I grew up in South Africa. I spent the first 22 years of my life there, and just a wonderful country, and I'm really pleased to be able to share a little bit of information about South Africa. I did want to show you, this is not the greatest map in the world, but I wanted to show you a little bit about where it is in location to where we are, and that'll just kind of help orient a little bit. Where this map is a little strange as well. This is an equal area map, which shows land at the same size, so you can kind of compare sizes. Most of the maps that we look at are distorted because of the curvature of the Earth, and here they've corrected that distortion. So this should give you a little bit of a view of how big Africa is, the continent, compared to some of the other continents that you're used to. And I wanted I've circled South Africa in red there so you can see South Africa is a country. A lot of people talk about Southern Africa as a region, and that includes Southern Africa with a small s, includes quite a few different countries, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, some other areas as well. So, but South Africa itself is a country. It's the southern part of Africa. So if you look at where we are, and I don't know that you can see my mouse on the screen, but if not, I'm sure you can find United States on the map. And you imagine if we're, I fly to visit my family in South Africa, we would fly across the ocean to this western part of Africa. And the first point that you will hit is Senegal, the country of Senegal. That flight from the United States to Senegal is about 7.5, 8 hours. It's about the same as flying to London or Paris from here. Once you get there, you usually refuel and get more gas on the plane. And then you take off from Senegal all the way down to South Africa. That trip is much longer than the trip to Senegal. So we are actually, where we are here in Virginia, we're actually closer to that west coast of Africa than they are to South Africa. I hope that makes sense, but it's a huge, huge continent. And I've just given you a little bit of a map there to show you a little bit of the country. South Africa actually has three capital cities. United States, the capital is Washington, D.C., but in South Africa, we have three different capitals. We have a political capital, we have a judicial capital where the court sits, and then we have a legislative capital as well. So down in Cape Town at the bottom, we have one of our capital cities, and then up towards the top where you see Pretoria and then Johannesburg, those are the other two cities. I grew up in that little corner to the bottom right, in a little place called East London. It's in the province of Eastern Cape. and I am right now, I see my brother is on the line here in this Zoom call. My brother Nigel is joining us. So I'm going to say hello to Nigel. He's joining us from East London right now. And
Hi,
Nigel,
everyone.
if you could, just tell us how are things in East London and what's the time there? And
Welcome. That's terrific. This is great.
Yeah, hi everyone. Great to be here. It's 9:20 at night here. The family's all gone to bed. I'm sitting up. You're interrupting my TV viewing, but it's definitely worth it to be here. Yeah, sitting in East London. It's raining at the moment. We've had a really dry spell over the last year or so, in quite a bad drought, and it's raining. It's been raining the whole week, so it's really great. Yeah, so great to be here.
And Nigel, it's going into the summertime there, right?
Yeah, we're heading into summer. East London's known for its wind, so it's really windy here at the moment. Yeah.
So what is your climate? If you're in the southern hemisphere, so you're entering summer, is it hot and dry, or is it cool and wet?
So we have summer rainfall. So we usually have hot and really humid summers. In this, well, most of South Africa actually, along the coastline. Yeah. So
an equivalent might be the northern part of Florida or the Gulf Coast is about far north as we are south, so it's subtropical as well. And where I grew up, one of the big agricultural products is pineapples, and pineapple fields everywhere. So it's little like that Hawaii kind of climate a little bit as well. And how's work going, Nige? Can you tell us a little bit about your work and COVID and what life looks like currently?
yeah. So South Africa, it's an interesting. It's a country of contrasts. So I think, from what I've read, we've had one of the most stringent lockdowns in the world. We locked down in early April. Literally weren't allowed to leave the house except for essentials, and that lasted for almost 2 months. All sorts of restrictions, which is quite unusual. South Africa is not known for strict public health measures, etc. So it's been an interesting time, as I'm sure it has been for everyone. But we at the moment, I'm still working from home, and it looks like that's going to be a permanent thing. Our company's kind of come around to the fact that it can work. So yeah, working from home. The stringent lockdown has had quite a significant impact on the economy. Obviously, I think South Africa's qualifies as a developing economy, so not quite third world, but certainly not a first world economy. And it's been a big knock. I mean, we're sitting on around 30% unemployment in the country at the moment, and a lot of people are really battling. A lot of small businesses in particular are struggling. But yeah, the South African people are fairly resilient, so so we'll get through it.
So tell me, how big is East London, and what is the economic base there? I know Dr. Coutts said that pineapples are a big thing, but I mean, what else is the economic base of South Africa?
Do you want to take that, Nigel?
I'll give it a bash, but jump in and correct me if I'm off target. I think South Africa is fairly mineral rich. So, you know, one of the big things is gold mining, and several other minerals, particularly up in the north, Johannesburg area, very rich in gold, etc. In the East London area, it's more of an agricultural economy. So the Eastern Cape, which is the province that East London falls into, is actually the poorest province in the country. And yeah, it's largely rural, largely agricultural economy. In East London, in particular, we have interestingly enough, we have a Mercedes-Benz plant. So we produce all the right-handed Mercedes-Benz's, Mercedes-Benz C-Class vehicles for the world. So quite a strange place for that to happen, but and that really holds up the economy of East London in particular. Yeah.
One thing I could also point out is South Africa has very different areas. So if you look down in the bottom left-hand corner around Cape Town is truly an international city and a center of finance and business. And then if you follow all the way along the coast from Cape Town all the way up, there's a range of mountains that kind of tracks along the coast. So there's a coastal plain. And then when you get over the mountains, all the inland area of the country is fairly high up and kind of a plateau area with a lot of agriculture. So there's a lot of different areas and climate within South Africa. I'm going to show you this this next slide, which will hopefully just tell you a little. This is a little bit of history, but not to make it too boring. But Nigel mentioned the vehicles, you know, making cars. There's also a Ford plant, I think, in Port Elizabeth, which is nearby. But South Africa was originally, it's at the bottom of that map, was originally the way that Europe and the East, India and Asia kind of connected. This was before the Suez Canal and others. So ships would go all the way around Africa. And so that put South Africa, Cape Town, and these countries right at the kind of center point for commerce and trade for hundreds of years. There's something like 3,000 shipwrecks along the coast where the ships would just be going back and forth, and it's still a major shipping route. But so there is a lot of industry that kind of serves these different countries because of where the country is located, and the fact that there's so much kind of traffic going back and forth. More recently, though, that's changed, and now you see a lot of other countries coming in and fishing, particularly from China. So just a lot of ships coming in and fishing in the waters, and but you also the population of South Africa is also made up of a lot of different groups that came into South Africa through the shipping route. So there's a large group of people from India who live in South Africa and have for almost centuries now. And in fact, you've probably heard of Gandhi, you know, the famous spiritual leader from India, he grew up and did his training in South Africa, and obviously the English settled in the Cape of Good Hope. Coming from Britain, they settled in, I think it was 1650, around then. Dutch from Netherlands. So there are lots of different groups that settled and make up the population of South Africa because of where we are on the shipping routes, really. There are currently about 60 million people in South Africa, and I mentioned some of those groups. The Indian group of people from India, the English, so that English is one of the official languages. Dutch, there's a language called Afrikaans, which is very close to Dutch. That's also an official language of South Africa. And then there are 9 other official languages so there are a total of 11 that make up the languages of South Africa. And they're all different groups. A lot of them are traditional African groups. Some of them, where I grew up in East London, the group there is the Xhosa. That's what the clique, and I think some of you have heard me use that before, but there's Xhosa, there's Zulu, there's Tswana, Sotho, Ndebele. There are a lot of different languages that make up South Africa based on the different, what were tribes now, different groups.
So how do they communicate with each other? Do they have one language that they speak together and then another? So are they kind of bilingual in a sense?
Nigel is probably better off. I will say that, and you may have heard of apartheid, which was in place until the early 90s. For 50 years before that, they really pushed Afrikaans as the official language, which is that Dutch language, and it was forced on a lot of people. So that that was a requirement growing up, was to learn Afrikaans. I think in the last 25, 30 years, English has become kind of like the common language of business and communication. Yeah. I don't know if I'm right about that, Nigel, but
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the language of commerce and well, not all, but the vast majority of contracts, etc., are written up in English. And yeah, I would say as a second language, English is probably the largest. English and Afrikaans as a legacy of apartheid. But yeah, so those are the common, and then also within, so the other non-official languages, but a lot of those have common factors. So there's some that are bigger than others, and so a lot of the tribes will sort of be able to communicate with each other in yeah,
and their own, yes, I had a student from Ghana who once told me she and her husband did not even speak the same language. So it was really easy when they had a fight because they never knew what the other one was saying.
You can see on that map, and I don't mean to bore you with charts, but 2 of the larger languages are Zulu and Xhosa, of the African languages, and these numbers are 10 years old, but about 24% speak Zulu as a home language, and about 17.6, 18% speak Xhosa. Those 2 languages, they're different, but they can kind of understand each other. There's some words in common. So yeah, it's very interesting. And then when a lot of a lot of people moved up to work on the gold mines. Nigel was talking about gold as being a really important source of money, I guess. Earlier on, when they moved up to the gold mines, they developed a kind of a common language that they a little bit like Creole developed here. They call it Funigalore, but it's just a mix of all different languages in order to communicate. So
I think that's so cool. But the language is my thing, so that I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think a lot of them have a common root, so they, the common origin, and so they kind of tie into each other.
I did. So I had just a couple of pictures. This is the Xhosa group, and these are just representative. The Xhosa are well known for the dress, and then those are some traditional huts. And we actually, our family summer vacation home for years was actually made up of huts like that, kind of linked together. So that's a kind of a traditional housing for the Xhosa. It was just a picture of wedding Zulu. And these are stereotypical images. I mean, I don't think you'd see it today, but just to give you an idea of the groups growing up. Ndebele, it's a tribe that are well known for their design. So they would paint their paintings with these bright geometric shapes, and they're kind of world famous for this design. Cape Dutch architecture, just you can see a lot of this around Cape Town, where a lot of the Dutch people settled. Here's a picture of East London, where Nigel is right now. It's kind of a harbor town. I just added some more pictures there of the beaches and the river. It is really a beautiful place.
So how many people live in East London?
Goodness.
What is the population? Is it?
Do you know, Nigel?
In comparison, is it as large as London, or is it small?
No, I would say probably you're looking at like Richmond,
Savannah,
Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah,
maybe a little less. Not as developed commercially, but there are a lot of we call them townships, settlements that have developed around the city, and there are a lot of people who live around the city. So I could actually find a population if I could Google it.
It's kind of like suburbia.
Yeah.
Except they're little groups of people. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Just some pictures growing up. Our school systems that required us to wear a uniform. It was more like a British system growing up. So, we had to wear jackets and ties going to school. There you go. That's my first grade class picture.
Dr. Coutts, I think everyone that's been on today has talked about the uniforms that they had to wear in school.
Really?
States. Yeah.
Everywhere except the United States.
Everybody except the United States wears a uniform to school. I remember once one of my students from Thailand told me she came in and she was upset because there was someone pregnant in the class with her. And I said, pregnant people get to go to college in the United States. And she said they cannot in Thailand because there's not a uniform to fit them.
That's interesting. I'm trying to think how that would work in South Africa, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same.
Yeah.
It might have changed a little bit recently, but
yeah.
So which one is you?
Oh, let me go back. I am top row, fourth from the left. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So are your schools set up like the British schools with the O levels and the A levels, or are they more European, like with gymnasium, or are they American, like K-12?
A little bit of both. We don't have O levels and A levels, but we have a system that is kind of based on that.
Yeah.
And also keep in mind that there were schools that are based on the British system, and then there were other schools that have and it all be kind of integrated. So it kind of differs a lot depending on where you are and what school you go to. But I think we have our high school, which is we do 5 years, I think, of high school, and when you finish high school, we call it matric. You matriculate. And you're kind of on a university path, which is you. And I don't know if it's still set up that way, but it's a little like, we call it higher grade and standard grade, and you had to take different classes based on your grade level, and that would put you on a university path or not. But so it's a little like the British system that way.
Yeah,
But
somewhat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
but it wasn't the European kind of apprenticeship system that I've seen. We didn't have that much at all.
Yeah. But you're still tracked so that if you're headed toward vocational, you can't switch and go to university because you haven't taken the right test.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
I was in school, you picked that path fairly early on, and then you were on that way. I don't know if that's changed, Nigel. Do you?
Yeah. No, it's very much still that way. I mean, you choose your subjects fairly early on in high school, and yeah, that's the path you take. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so did you have kindergarten? Do you have kindergarten?
Yeah.
Yeah, we called it actually when I was young we called it nursery school, but it's pre-primary.
Pre-primary. Yeah.
But it's the
And
same.
so how old are they when they go to pre-primary or nursery school?
So my daughter is. I'm just trying to think. She started at the age of 3 with.
And so is it more socialization and play like the German system, or is it more like our system where they're getting you ready to, write your name and stand in line and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, very much play. It differs. So at that level, there's it's all private. So there's very little government oversight. So it differs from school to school, but generally it's play.
Okay.
Learning through play. Yeah.
I think that's a photo of some snow. It's very, very rare to find snow, but that was a picture that we went up into the mountains. And I think that happened like once in my life. So it does get cold up in the mountains, but it's rare.
Yeah, my wife is 40, almost 40. She's never seen snow, and the only time I've seen snow is when I visited Chris in the USA. So yeah, it's fairly rare. Yeah.
So Dr. Coutts, let me ask you, how did you end up in Virginia?
So I will go. By the way, that was my daughter on the beach on Christmas Day, just to show you the weather. I ended up in Virginia. I'll see if I can find that map. But when I was in college in Grahamstown, which is so Grahamstown is is between Port Elizabeth and East London, right in the middle. And in my last year of college, I worked at a local school. It was a boarding school, and I was helping out with called it a housemaster, but just helping out at the school with coaching sport and homework and all of that. And my wife, well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but she's from Virginia, from the United States, and she came and worked at that same school on an exchange. She wanted to do a Peace Corps exchange, but and she ended up working at the school. So we worked together and met there in Grahamstown in South Africa. We dated for a while. I applied to, at the end of that year, I applied to come and visit the United States. I was turned down. I wasn't able to get a visa to visit. I think some of you might know, but it's very, very difficult to get to the United States if you're outside the country. So I actually went and worked in London in England for a year and a half, and my wife and I dated long distance. She was in the United States, I was in London. Eventually, when we got engaged, I was then allowed to come and I got permission, visa to come and visit the United States, and that's when I came over.
So do you still have to have a visa from South Africa to the United States?
I believe so, Nigel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you do. Yeah, and it's quite a process to to get it. So you know,
we have to have a visa to come there.
No,
it's just you coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
The reason that I was turned down, and bear in mind this was in the 90s, so it got more stringent after 9/11. But the reason that I was turned down and not allowed to visit the United States is because they would only allow in people who either owned property in South Africa, so owned their own house, and had a full-time job that they had to return to. And because I was a college student, I didn't meet those requirements. So that was part of the reason I was turned down at that time. I'll say one more thing about people often ask when we talk about wildlife and the animals. So I'll just talk about that a little bit briefly. These are just some pictures. The elephants, lions, all of that. You do see them, but they are in parks. Like you won't see the big animals out in the wild. So they're confined to national and private game reserves or parks, and you can go and visit and interact and see them. This picture that I took of the elephants was from a game farm that was very close to East London. So you do see the animals, but they are in parks, and you can see giraffe and elephants and lion and all of that. So there's some lions and buffalo. What you do see out in the wild are monkeys. Monkeys are kind of like the squirrels here. That's a picture of the monkey, a vervet monkey on the roof of our home. So you do.
Denise is asking a question. Can you go and pet them?
These monkeys or the animals?
Or Denise, do you mean the elephants or the lions or what?
No, the elephants.
Yes. And I don't know if I have a picture of that, but there are places where you can go and interact with the elephants. So they'll bring them in and have them kind of stand, and you can go and touch them. It's very controlled. They have people helping you do that. So it's not just out in the wild. But the elephants, because they're at danger for being hunted, people hunt them and kill them for the tusks, for the ivory. So they always have game rangers, people walking with them with guns, kind of protecting them from poachers. And so you can, in some places, you can go and interact with them and pet them and touch them, but it's a very controlled setup. You wouldn't do that out in the wild, if that makes sense.
Well, and also you have places when you could take a shower with them, because I don't know if you heard, but I know that some places in Thailand you can go to the sanctuary or something like that, and you can take showers with them.
Oh,
So it's
cool.
pretty cool. So I'm asking if you have something like that, because
Ah.
this is like my dream.
Oh, wow. I don't know.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I saw people that goes over there, and I don't know the name, but if you search in Google and you put sanctuaries in Thailand, they can take a shower with them. So it's pretty cool. I know that they have to make, careful, because some people they want to hound it, and for the taste and something like that. So I was asking you because some places do it. So I wasn't sure if in South Africa makes the same thing.
Huh. I don't know, but I think that's a great idea. I do know that the elephants in African elephants are a little different than Asian elephants. So I don't know if they behave differently. I know there are people who ride on the elephants, and I know that happens. In fact, I don't know if you can see in this photograph. You can just see the guy's shoe there. There's somebody on top of that elephant. So I said they probably could go for a swim, but I've never done that, and I haven't seen it.
How often do
Oh.
you go home, Dr. Coutts?
I try to. I went last Christmas, so a year ago, to visit my parents. I try to go, if I can go once a year, that's great. To fly there takes about 18 hours or so. So it's a long flight and a long trip. And I try to go once a year if I can. Obviously, I haven't been able to go this year because of the COVID. They just announced this last week, though, that they're opening up the international flights again. So I might start looking at my next trip. But I would say on average, every year or second year, I've been lucky enough to work at LFCC and get some time off to be able to do that. But it's and just by way of example, after if you fly there for 18 hours, you're really jet lagged and tired, and the time difference. So it takes a few days to actually feel you get over the travel and the jet lag and feel like you're on a holiday. So a trip should be about 2 or 3 weeks to make it work.
Yes. Yeah. Because then when you come back, you still have the 18 hours and the jet lag and the time difference and
Absolutely.
and trying to get your head back together. And at 4 o'clock, you're sound asleep someplace.
That's right.
So this has been terrific. It's really been great. Nigel, what do you do in South Africa? What is your job?
So I work for a debt collection company. So we collect debt. I'm actually I'm in IT. So I wouldn't say I'm a programmer, but I kind of manage a team of programmers. So we build systems for the call center at the company and various other functions. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does your wife do?
She's an attorney or a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she specializes in child, we call it maintenance.
Alimony?
alimony.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and family law. Yeah.
Okay. Great. It's great that you joined us. I think it's wonderful. That gives me an idea for next year.
It's been great to be here. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's a great way to bring the world together. I mean, I hate COVID, but it's given me ideas.
Well, Nigel, I think we'll let you go and get some sleep, huh?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And if
Yeah,
there,
I can go and finish that show I was watching on Netflix now.
oh, okay. There any other questions we can answer? Otherwise, I really appreciate everybody's time, and I hope this was interesting.
Yes, Dr. Coutts, has been great. It's really been terrific. I've really enjoyed it.